dairy products come from a cow, and cows, like all other animals, don't give you milk. They don't give you milk at all, farmers take it, but they don't produce milk until they have been pregnant and have given birth. That's the way the system works. And so to keep their milk production maximal, the farmers impregnate the cows every year. Not personally, but they, you know what I mean? Anyway, so gestation in a cow is about 9 months, similar in length to a human. And so if they're impregnated every year, that means that 9 months out of every 12, 3/4 of their lives, they are pregnant. And that's the truth. So when the cow is pregnant, they start making more and more estrogens, female sex hormones. And as this is plasma, this is milk. So the estrogens get into the milk, and it's only a trace. But toward the end of pregnancy, if you send a pail of milk from your cow off to the lab, they know. They can tell you where in the pregnancy the cow is, and that's the milk that's sold in the stores. Okay? So researchers at Harvard University and also researchers in Rochester, New York, looked at sperm counts in cheese-eating men. And they separated men who ate a little cheese to those who ate a lot of cheese. And basically, those men who had relatively low cheese intake had higher sperm counts compared to the men who were tucking into cheese. And it turned out that cheese eating meant that men had less sperm, the sperm had more abnormal morphology, and less motility. They weren't so athletic. And so the concern was that somehow dairy products are interfering with male fertility. Could it be these tiny traces of female hormones that men are consuming every day, a few times a day? Could it affect something like fertility? Well, what was worse was, this was a study in California. They looked at women who had had breast cancer. They'd all been treated. They were all hoping one thing, that my breast cancer never comes back. And what they found is that the more cheese and butter, the more high-fat dairy products women ate, the higher their risk of dying of their cancer. The women who consumed 1 or more servings of high-fat dairy a day had a 49% higher risk of dying of their cancer, 49%, compared to those women consuming less than half a serving a day. So, it's only a trace of hormones in milk. And I am quite prepared to believe it couldn't possibly affect our biology. However, you already have all the hormones in your body that you need. And if you add a little bit extra, and it's in the milk, and then you turn the milk into cheese, the hormones go with the fat. Cheese is 70% fat, and your average American eats 35 pounds of it every single year. Could that be enough to affect something delicate like growth of a cancer cell or male fertility? And do I want to feed it to my 6-year-old daughter or my 7-year-old son? Is this something that we think is safe for them, knowing what we know? Asthma, this is Chad. Chad lived in New Hampshire, right on the water, and he was very athletic, and he and his brothers would play baseball and so forth, except he could never get through a game. Because the exercise would induce asthma, and he'd have to go sit on the sidelines. A number of times he had to go to the emergency room. If he'd go to a friend's house, if they had a dog, the dog would set off his allergies, and maybe his asthma would be bad, and he'd go to the emergency room. Well, along the lines of when he was about 18, a friend said, what you're hearing from Dr. Porras, said maybe that you should avoid dairy, and maybe that would help you with respiratory conditions. So he thought, well, what have I got to lose? Let me do all vegan, just no dairy, no animal products whatsoever. So he got away from animal products, including dairy, and his asthma completely went away within about 2 or 3 months, which was terrific for him. He then joined Ruby, you know Ruby, the online cooking company, and set up a plant-based educational program for them. So asthma, could that be linked to dairy products? So let's go online and ask this question. So we can Google it, type in asthma, dairy, and the first thing that comes up in our search is National Asthma Council Australia, and they actually address this question directly. They say on their website, dairy foods have often been suggested as a common trigger for asthma. But there's little scientific evidence to support this myth. Unfortunately, most Australians are missing out on the health benefits that come from consuming milk, cheese, and yogurt, as they don't include enough dairy foods in their diet. Starting to smell a little funny, isn't it? Let's go to their sponsors page. See what we find. Okay, there's Dairy Australia over there. They make money if you consume dairy products. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drug companies. They make money if you've got asthma. There's nobody here who makes money if you get well, or if you know about this. And I'm sorry to tell you this, corruption in health sciences and health advocacy is a huge and growing problem. And there are good organizations, such as the American Heart Association, for example, but for $10,000 a year, you can join the AHA's panel of, they have the Industry Nutrition Advisory Panel. And the food companies all pile in and give the American Heart Association $10,000 a year, and what they get in exchange is special access to the American Heart Association's policymakers. Do you think there is ever going to be a statement from the American Heart Association that maybe you shouldn't go to McDonald's? Or that maybe lard is bad for your heart, or something like that? And this is what we're seeing. So many organizations, including the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and everybody else, is taking industry money. Don't get me wrong, their members are aware of this, and it's hotly controversial. But this is the world that we still live in, unfortunately. And these people are smart, and they fund research studies that try to advance their mission. I wish I had a good answer for you on this, but we're fighting as much as we can to get the truth out there. Okay, so the last thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about milk a little bit. Cows. I mentioned that to produce milk, the cows have to be artificially inseminated. And to show you how this happens, the United Nations actually makes agricultural guides to show people how they can run their dairy farm. And they do this with pictures like this because they want it for people who are low literacy or may speak a language that the United Nations hasn't been able to translate into. So it's all done with diagrams. So these are United Nations pictures that I'm going to show you. What you do is you take your left arm and you put a glove on it, all the way up to your shoulder, and you put your hand inside the cow's rectum, all the way up to your elbow, and you feel the cow's uterus through the rectal wall. And you hold the rectum still. Then with your right hand, you take what looks like a knitting needle, and you load it up with semen from a bull, and you put it into the cervix and inject it, and that cow is now pregnant. And this is the way it looks. And then you write the date on the side of the cow, because she's going to give birth on that day. And neither the bull nor the cow are volunteers. But she is not going to object because she's chained by the neck. And she doesn't have any choice in this matter. 9 months later, she will have a baby, and this is her baby. Despite the fact that it was an involuntary pregnancy on her part, her baby is now in the hay in front of her. And she leans down, and she starts licking her baby, and the baby looks up at mom and starts blinking his eyes. And the farm hands all look around, and they say, "That's just so beautiful. Gets me every time." And they watch for a little while, but very soon they all know that if the calf nurses from mom, my dairy's not going to work. I mean, we're taking the dairy. We're not giving it to him. So they have an implement that solves this problem. It's called a wheelbarrow. And you pick the calf up by the chest and put the calf in the wheelbarrow, and then you plunk her into a hutch, or him, and all night long. Oh, by the way, the cow will fight you. There's no stronger bond in nature than a mother and her baby. I don't care what species you are. So she follows that wheelbarrow, and she pushes and basically says, "What are you doing?" until she gets a gate slammed in her face and she can't go any further, and she stands there and cries out for her baby. Now, if this is a female, the female has value. She can grow up to join the dairy herd, but we don't want her to have horns or things like that, so we will cut them off. And if you get her early on, you can just scrape them right out of the skull with a process called disbudding. I found this in a Massachusetts newspaper when I was writing the cheese trap. Strange noises coming from the high road near Sunshine Dairy Farm Monday night and into yesterday morning prompted local police to alert residents that there's nothing spooky or scary going on. According to Newbury Police Sergeant Patty Fisher, the noises are coming from mother cows who are lamenting the separation from their calves. It happens every year at the same time. Every glass of milk you ever had comes from this system. However, we're not quite done, because at about age 4, the farmers are good business people, they calculate how much feed it takes to get a pail of milk from the mother cow. And by about age 4, she's not producing quite as much milk as she was when she was 2 or 3. That's a good age to kill her, so you send her off in a truck to slaughter, and replace her with her daughter. So the daughter is young and vigorous, and with a little bit of feed, you can get a lot more milk. And so every single month, about 200,000 dairy cows are killed. The normal lifespan of a cow is about 20 years, give or take. But in the United States, dairy farms, 4. And then the cycle goes on. When the daughter is about 4, she'll become hamburger, and when her daughters will replace her. So the dairy industry is a meat industry. It's just really, really slow before they slaughter you. So the reason I'm raising this with you is that for some people, the concerns about asthma, or cancer, or infertility, or weight gain, or high blood pressure are the things that are most meaningful. But for other people, the things that they remember the most are things that just make them feel kind of creepy about making diet choices. And if we are reached in our gut, that's just as good as being reached in our cerebral hemisphere. Well, that is kind of sickening. Is there something I can eat instead? Is there? Is there? Sure, of course there is. Okay, here's my salad. Instead of feta, I can put on some avocado chunks. That works. Gives you that mouthfeel, and you don't have to impregnate an avocado. Instead of cheese, grilled cheese. When I was a kid growing up in Fargo, we never heard of hummus, whatever this stuff is. We only knew about grilled cheese. But we learned, and that makes a perfectly good sandwich. I can go to Whole Foods and get that pizza. I can get that one. It's right next to it. They taste the same. They cost the same. They're good. Or I can make one at home. I just roll it out and I put on my secret ingredient, nutritional yeast. Have you used this? It no fat, no hormones, but it tastes like cheese. You can put in all kinds of stuff. So nutritional yeast is our secret weapon. And have you anybody ever made ricotta that's a tofu ricotta? You ever do that? Your friends swear to you that it's the real thing. How, really? This is vegan? Yes, absolutely. Okay, and there are, of course, all kinds of non-dairy cheeses on the market. And it's very neat to see. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that you stick with them forever. Think of them as cheese methadone. They'll help you over your addiction, but are used for transition tracks. This is my book, The Cheese Trap, that came out. And I want to shout out to Drina Burton, who did the recipes. And her idea was that we're going to help people to see all the things they like with cheese, so you can make a ravioli or a pizza without the cheese. So that's the idea there. So I hope you found this helpful. And before turning the microphone back over to Chuck, I just want to share with you some hot new items that came onto my radar recently. Is that okay? Okay, number 1. Have you seen the movie or you haven't seen it, turns out. Have you heard of this movie, Game Changers? This is a movie, it's just about to come out, and it's about all of these high-level athletes. You've been hearing about all the athletes who are going vegan. It started with long-distance runners, then it was Serena Williams and Venus Williams, and then a lot of tennis players, and then it was people in basketball, and then Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton, Lindy. All these people are doing it. So Game Changers is all about that. How the most macho people in the world are all vegan now. Tracy McWhirter has a new book out that I just read the other day, and it's coming out later this spring. Have a look at it. It's very cool. She wrote it with her mom, and I really, really like it. Also, new restaurant. If anybody's been up to Philadelphia, they have a restaurant called Veg. And so DC got they wanted to have a similar restaurant, so Fancy Radish is about to open up. If you go into Rodman's drugstore, they have, and gourmet food place, they are now marketing this wonderful Ethiopian dip, which comes in 3 or 4 flavors, very low in fat, and it gives you a very nice vegan meal that we're promoting. Also, this coming Friday and Saturday, we're having our first immersion. It's a 2-day program that we're having, sponsored by the Barnard Medical Center, for people who want to get a real in-depth knowledge all about vegan diets. So that's coming up this Friday and Saturday, but we'll have more of them throughout the year. Also, I have a book myself coming out. This is a new cookbook for reversing diabetes coming out in February 27th, I think it is, along with the new version of my diabetes book on the same day. And so we will be mentioning upcoming events at all future vegan-ness programs that we'll have. So if you have something hot that we need to let people know about, just tell us and we will include it. And lastly, I want to say a word for Chuck. Chuck's going to tell you about his story, but he now has a podcast. And have some of you dug into our podcast? If not, please do and share it around. They're really, really cool. And there are things that people really are enjoying. So Chuck has been spearheading that. It's really great. Oh, wait, I got one more. At Rodman's, Jason, the manager there, came up with this carton of Oatly barista milk. It's an oat milk that froths. And so you can make your cappuccino out of oat milk. So give it a try. Oh, wait, one more thing. I want to say a word about our Food for Life instructors. If you combine all the instructors, it's 358 in 15 countries plus the United States. And really fabulous things. So the Food for Life program is great. Take advantage of the instructors, take advantage of classes, and become an instructor if you can. Jill, did I leave anything out?
I'm an instructor here.
Oh, do we have other Food for Life instructors? Okay, we got one. Yeah, thank you. All right, there's some other instructors. All right, back to you, Chuck.
Thank you very much. Round of applause to Dr. Barnard. I don't know about you guys, but I could just listen to him speak all day, right? Right? I've never met a man that carries more knowledge in his dome than Dr. Barnard. That is just incredible. So here's the deal. You may have heard Dr. Barnard reference my story, and there's a reason why I'm standing here talking to you tonight, and that is because this is very near and dear to my heart. And, you know, there was a time in my life when I didn't look like this. There was a time in my life when I had a 66-inch waist, I had a size 6XL shirt, and I weighed, get this, 420 pounds. Keep in mind, thank you, I like where your head's at, sir, thank you. I'm 5'6" on a good day, so 420 pounds. I was in my mid-20s, and honestly, I did not think that I was going to live to see 30. I had tried every diet known to man, and of course, you go up, you go down, you just ride that yo-yo roller coaster. The problem with dieting is people don't really know what a diet is. They think that it's this short-term thing. I'm going to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds, in my case, 100 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever the case may be, and then I'm going to reward myself by going to Taco Bell. That was my vice. You heard Dr. Barnard also reference food addiction. I am here to tell you that food addiction is very, very real. With every failed diet that I ever did, there were nights when I was up and I was in cold sweats. I had been doing really well on this diet, but somewhere around day 5, day 6, day 7, my body would really start to detox off of these fast foods. And it is just like the narcotics, again, that Dr. Barnard was referencing. Cold sweats in the middle of the night. I would get angry. I was short with people. My mother's here tonight. She can attest to this. And I was just so ashamed of breaking down and going off of my diet that I would literally sneak out in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and go to a 24-hour drive-thru at Taco Bell, where I would load up on $20 worth of food. $20 at Taco Bell. That's hard to do. But I would do that, and I would come home, and I would just binge. And a rush would come over me. It was my drug. And this was the hardest thing in the world for me to conquer. So here I am at age 26. My dating options were limited. I had justified my size because I was a wacky morning sidekick on the radio working at Big 100.3. When you're that large, you will use any excuse in the book to justify your size. You really, really will. And no matter what the case may be. It doesn't matter if you're flying across country and you can't fit into the seat and you have to ask for a seatbelt extender and you do what I call the walk of shame down the aisle in the plane, and you see people's eyes, they hit you as you're walking, and they're all saying, "Dear God, please don't let this person sit next to me." That was me. That was very difficult to do. Was that kind of my breaking point? Yes. That and the fact that my friends were organizing an intervention for me, which I caught wind of beforehand. Nice in thought, but very much angered me at the same time. Who are you to tell me that I had a problem? I didn't have a problem. Of course I knew that I had a problem, but I wasn't going to admit it. So quietly, I made the drastic decision to undergo gastric bypass surgery. Now, mind you, that I knew nothing about plant-based dieting at this point in my life. Had I known about a vegan diet, perhaps things would have worked out differently. But I did undergo the gastric bypass surgery on my 27th birthday. That was when the first procedure occurred. And when you go and you first have this consult, my doctor said something that really struck a chord with me. He said, well, if this doesn't take, you can come back and you can have what they call a revisionist surgery. That's if you expand your stomach back to normal size, you continue binge eating. We can go back, we can shrink your stomach for a second time. I had no interest in that. But I honestly thought that this was just going to be another failed diet. But something happened when I woke up from that procedure. And you can make a choice. You can go left or you can go right back to the way that you were eating. Now here's where the gastric bypass actually paid dividends for me. And that is, there is a 3-month window approximately where you can't physically tolerate those foods that you had been eating. So I was in a forced, prolonged detox, because if I ate those foods, I would become violently ill. And so when I reached that 3-month window, I said, no way am I ever going back. And as a matter of fact, I said that as soon as I woke up from the procedure. The next day, my father and stepmother had brought me a cup of coffee from McDonald's, and I was like, I'm just not going to drink this. Like, I want nothing to do with the fast food industry, and to this day, I have never, ever gone back. I have no interest. The whole thought of it just grosses me out. Anyway, I couldn't exercise yet. I was still 420 pounds, just had the procedure, and I wanted to start that program, but what could I do? I could barely walk across the street, but that's what I did. That's exactly where I started. I walked across the street. I would sit down at a park, just stare out to the field, catch my breath for about 15 minutes, walk back to my desk and lunch. Built up, I could walk around the block. Then 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, eventually a mile, 2 miles. It got to a point where I had to ask my bosses at work for an extended lunch break so I could walk 5 miles a day. And I was religious about this. And you notice the one word that I haven't said as far as losing weight yet is gym. I never went to the gym because every failed diet I had ever done before involved a gym membership. So why in the world would I go back to something that didn't work previously? So I just walked it off. And that's how I lost the majority of my weight. But the problem here, and I'm going to bring this full circle and take it home, the problem here is that all the while, I'm still eating food that I really shouldn't be eating. I'm not talking about fast food. I had eliminated that from my diet. I had eliminated potato chips, all of that stuff. But I was eating things like MetaFast bars and, these Weight Watchers, pre-packaged meals. And there's really not a whole lot healthy about that. And I was doing a radio show with the Redskins player, and lo and behold, one day I was asked to come and do some work for the Physicians Committee. They were doing a PSA campaign featuring athletes, and me being a sports media guy, they asked me to get involved. And so that's when I first learned about vegan dieting. And I kind of checked that in the back of my mind for about a year and a half. And then I was doing another interview with an athlete, and he said, man, I've been doing this for 10 years. And who was I to argue with him? This guy was a world champion. He was known across the world. And so I really took a hard look at it, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I did. And I told my wife, and she gets all angry, you're always doing these diets, blah, 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 blah. Why do you want to do this? You're doing so well. And I said, honey, let's sit down. We're going to turn on Netflix. And I showed her What the Health. And from that day, she's been vegan as well. And so by going vegan, what I found was I wasn't healthy even after I lost 265 pounds. I'm healthy today because I'm eating a 100% plant-based diet. I felt great before, now I feel phenomenal. I'm 35 today, I feel like I've got my 20s back. You know, if I was like this when I was in high school, man, who knows where I would be. But I'm living my dream. I get to come up here, I get to talk to you guys about vegan dieting, I get to host a podcast with Dr. Barnard. And that is just a dream come true. And I did all of that by just simply changing my diet and now enlightening people about the benefits of vegan diet. So it is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening. Thank you. Thank you. We have one thing left before we send you home. Hopefully the weather hasn't turned yet. And that is, we're going to call this, well, let's just welcome back to the stage Maggie Viola. Maggie, you have a nutrition tip for the good people, do you not?
Yes.
All right, Maggie, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Chuck. So lastly, I would like you to try this. As a dietitian at Barnard Medical Center, we have people who are already vegan and people who are new to it entirely or never heard of the word, but this tip is really good for everybody, something that you can get out of it. So what I want you to do is try the Power Plate. And more specifically, at every meal, if you can include at least 3, if not all 4 of the food groups in your meal, the better off you'll be for that. So there are 4 food groups here. You're probably very familiar with them, but just to roll this out for you, we've got fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Fruits can be, fresh, frozen, even applesauce, which comes in a can. You can use that. It doesn't matter, whatever really works best for you. And then whole grains, you can think of quinoa or injera, whole wheat bread, something along those lines. Those grains are also very, very important for your health. And then vegetables as well. So we tell you to eat the rainbow, so it's not just those green leafy vegetables and broccoli. That's a great color to include. But don't forget about purple eggplant and red bell pepper and yellow squash. All of those have different health benefits for you because they're different colors. And last but not least, we've got the legume category, so that's those beans, lentils, tofu, and tempeh. So when I say at least 3 or 4 food groups in your meal, what does that really look like? So we've got some examples here of different meals. The first one, we've got a tempeh sloppy joe. So tempeh is that legume, then there's vegetables on that sandwich, and then the bun itself is that grain. So there's 3 food groups right there. That's a really good start. The next one, we've got a balsamic zucchini sandwich. So zucchini, again, coming up multiple times tonight. Really great vegetable. In addition to hummus on there, which is part of that legume category. And again, that sandwich wrap there as well. The third option is this easy vegetable fajita. So black beans are the legume, there's bell peppers in there as that vegetable, and the tortilla acts as that grain group. The next option that we have here is even breakfast. You can do this same tip for breakfast. You've got a tofu zucchini scramble. So tofu is that legume, zucchini, again, a wonderful vegetable, and then the scramble could be on toast, or you could even add quinoa to that, whatever floats your boat. The next option we've got here too would be this mango bean salad. This one actually probably has all 4 food groups in there. So mango's that fruit, black beans, you've got that legume there. You also have quinoa, I imagine, at the bottom of this one. And let's go on to the next one. These lentil pumpkin curry. It sounds amazing, especially when it's cold out now. Again, incorporating at least 3 food groups in there. So all of these recipes are actually from our website. If you go to pcrm.org/recipes, you will find these there. And let me just recap for you, why is this so important? Not just fun to count and have all these different things, but it really inspires creativity. So if you're looking at a recipe, oftentimes let's talk about spaghetti, you see noodles, which is that grain, and then marinara sauce, maybe some spinach in there. But that's only 2 food groups, so how can I add something else? What would be good with that? Maybe lentils, maybe white beans, you drain and rinse a can. And there you go, you've got 3 food groups, you're gonna feel full longer. And also, by having have multiple food groups, you're gonna give your body the nutrients that you need. Every group is different, so whole grains may have more protein, iron, and zinc in there, whereas legumes are gonna have your calcium, protein, and a ton of fiber. All of them have fiber, but every category offers something different, which is why it's so important to include each food group. And then the last part too is it really does inspire some creativity. So maybe you do this already, but man, go to your grocery store, wherever you get your food, and look at, oh, I haven't had purple potatoes in a long time, or maybe I've never had that before. Look around and see what else you can try that you don't typically have. You always hear, the more variety, the better. And this is your opportunity to get creative, and to try something different, and learn some new eating behaviors to make sure that you're getting a variety of nutrients for you. So, if you like this tip and you'd like to come and see more, definitely come visit us at Barnard Medical Center. There's a great team of dietitians who can give you more individualized nutrition counseling, and we'd be happy to help you out. So Chuck will come back here and close the show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another round of applause. You guys don't know this, but Maggie put in hours of work to help put on this event this evening. So, Maggie, thank you very much. Incredible stuff. So, guys, thank you so very much for coming out. We are going to be doing this every month. Our next show is the 20th of February, so just mark your calendars. It's the third Tuesday of every month, and I'll be here. The whole Physicians Committee crew will be here. Maggie will be here, certainly. I don't know if we're going to be doing pseudo races, but I'm sure we'll think of something wacky to do. But real quick before you go, we could use your help and helping get our life-saving message out there to support those who could certainly use our help. In the back is Jill Eckhart. You can see here she is holding up yellow envelopes right there. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Physicians Committee, please pick up an envelope from Jill and then take that to our book sales table, and you will become a card-carrying member of the Physicians Committee, and we would certainly appreciate that. So a round of applause for yourself for coming out tonight. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks, everybody.